Barron Trump casually strolled up to a lemonade stand, bought a drink from a little girl, and then, out of nowhere, handed her a note. As she opened it, her whole expression changed in an instant. Tears filled her eyes and she couldn't hold them back. What did the note say? Was it something encouraging? A secret message only she could understand? What could possibly have caused such an emotional reaction? The sun bathed the quiet suburban neighborhood in a warm, golden glow, turning everything it touched into a postcard-perfect scene. Lawns were immaculately trimmed, flower beds exploded with vibrant colors, and the scent of fresh-cut grass lingered in the air. Birds chirped cheerfully from the trees, their songs blending seamlessly with the occasional low rumble of a lawnmower from a distant yard. It was the kind of Saturday that felt almost too perfect to be real. Amid this idyllic backdrop, a spirited 9-year-old with a constellation of freckles on her cheeks was hard at work in her driveway. Outside her family's modest brick house, Melanie had spent her entire morning setting up what she was certain would be the best lemonade stand her neighborhood had ever seen. Her setup was simple, but bursting with personality. An old folding table covered with a bright yellow cloth, topped with her carefully crafted sign. In bubbly pink and green letters, the sign proudly announced, "Lemonade 50 cents only." Though it was taped on slightly crooked, the charm of her effort was undeniable. Melanie had gone the extra mile too. She meticulously arranged her supplies like a pro, making sure everything looked just right. At the center of the table was a glass pitcher filled with ice-cold lemonade that sparkled under the sunlight. Beside it sat a neat stack of paper cups and a small tin box ready to collect her hard-earned coins. For a touch of flair, she'd added a vase with a single daisy she'd picked from her mom's garden. It wasn't just a lemonade stand. It was her little empire. As neighbors strolled by, Melanie greeted each one with an enthusiasm that matched the brightness of the day. Her brown eyes sparkled with pride every time someone stopped to buy a cup. An older woman walking a tiny, scruffy dog was her first customer, dropping 2 shiny quarters into the tin box with a smile. "This is delicious, Melanie," the woman said, sipping from her cup. Melanie's face lit up as she waved goodbye, feeling a burst of pride. Every little moment like that made her feel like a real entrepreneur, like she was running her very own business. Just as she was refilling her pitcher, something caught her attention. A tall figure walking down the sidewalk. She paused, her hands hovering over the lemonade, squinting to get a better look. It wasn't just his height that made him stand out, though he was tall, taller than her dad for sure. It was the way he moved. His stride was unhurried, his posture relaxed. Yet there was a quiet confidence about him that Melanie couldn't quite put her finger on. He wore simple clothes, nothing flashy, but there was something almost magnetic about his presence. He looked like he belonged in this peaceful neighborhood, yet there was something about him that felt different. Melanie blinked, tilting her head slightly as her curiosity got the better of her. Who is he, she wondered. The closer he came, the more her imagination ran wild. Was he new in town? Maybe he was someone important. Or maybe, just maybe, he'd stopped by her stand. When the tall young man reached Melanie's lemonade stand, he stopped with an easy, warm smile that seemed to brighten the summer afternoon even more. For a moment, Melanie froze, her small hands gripping the lemonade pitcher as if it might suddenly fly away. "Hi," he said in a soft, polite voice. "Is this your lemonade stand?" Melanie nodded quickly, her curls bouncing. She tried to ignore the nervous flutter in her chest. "Yep, it's 50 cents a cup," she replied, though her voice sounded a little shaky even to her own ears. The young man chuckled softly, the sound low and kind, like he wasn't just making polite small talk, but actually enjoying the moment. "That sounds like a deal," he said, reaching into his pocket. As Melanie carefully poured the lemonade into a paper cup, she found herself stealing glances at him. There was something about him, something friendly but mysterious. He wasn't like the other customers who rushed by with distracted smiles and loose change. "So, are you from around here?" she asked, her voice small but curious. He shook his head, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a small, knowing smile. "Not really, just passing through," he said. "But this is a nice neighborhood, and your lemonade stand caught my eye." Melanie grinned, the compliment warming her more than the midday sun. Thanks. I've been doing this every summer since I was 6. It's fun, and I usually save up for something special. His eyebrows arched slightly in interest. What are you saving for this year? The question lit a spark in Melanie's eyes. She set the pitcher down carefully, her excitement bubbling up. A necklace for my mom, she said, her voice practically glowing with pride. It's for her birthday next month. I saw it at the mall. It has this little heart pendant with her favorite color, green. She hesitated for a second before adding shyly, "It's kind of expensive, so I need to sell a lot of lemonade." The young man's expression softened, and he nodded as though her plan was the most important mission he'd heard all day. "That's really thoughtful. Your mom must be so proud to have such a kind daughter." Melanie's cheeks flushed pink, but she couldn't stop the wide smile spreading across her face. "She's the best," Melanie said earnestly. "I want to get her something that shows how much I love her." She handed him the cup, her heart racing as she waited for his reaction. When he took a sip, his face lit up with genuine surprise. "This is really good," he said, his voice carrying an almost playful note of amazement. Melanie felt her chest swell with pride. "Thanks, it's my special recipe. I add a little more sugar and squeeze in an extra lemon. My mom says it gives it more zing." "Smart," he said, nodding appreciatively. "Did you make this all by yourself?" "Well, my mom helps sometimes, but I did this batch all on my own," she said proudly. "That's impressive," he said, setting the cup down gently on her small table. "Honestly, it's better than most lemonade I've had. You could probably start your own business someday." Melanie giggled at the thought, the sound light and carefree. "Maybe, but I think I'd want to open a bakery instead. I love making cookies and cupcakes. Lemonade's just for summer." "A bakery?" he said, leaning slightly against her table. Despite his tall frame, the movement seemed effortless, like he was perfectly at ease. "What would you call it?" Melanie's brow furrowed as she thought, her fingers drumming lightly on the edge of the pitcher. Maybe something like Sweet Treats by Melanie. Or, ooh, how about Melanie's Magic Bakery? "I like the second one," he said, his grin widening. "It's catchy. Sounds like a place I'd want to visit." Melanie laughed, the earlier nervousness melting away. He didn't seem intimidating anymore, just someone kind and genuinely interested in her little lemonade stand. "Thanks, you're probably the first person who's ever asked me so many questions about lemonade." He chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Well, it's not every day you find someone with a recipe this good. I might have to take some tips." They shared a laugh, and for a moment, the sounds of the bustling neighborhood faded into the background. It felt like they were the only two people in the world, sharing a secret conversation over a cup of lemonade. As the last few drops disappeared from the cup, the young man set it down and reached into his jacket pocket again. Melanie tilted her head slightly, wondering what he was doing. Was he grabbing his phone to take a picture of her stand? Instead, he pulled out a small leather notebook and a pen. Melanie blinked, curiosity lighting up her face. "What's that for?" she asked, leaning over the table just a little. The young man smiled softly, flipping open the notebook. "You'll see," he said with a small chuckle. He began writing, the pen gliding steadily across the paper. Melanie watched, trying not to fidget, but the suspense was almost unbearable. What could he possibly be writing? A recipe suggestion? A thank you note? Her imagination raced. To distract herself, she focused on tidying up her stand, straightening the bright yellow tablecloth, rearranging the cups, and making sure the pitcher handle was just right. But her eyes kept darting back to the notebook. Finally, he finished. With a quick motion, he tore out 2 pages, folded them neatly, and slid them across the table toward her. "What's this?" Melanie asked, her voice hushed as she stared at the folded paper. The young man's smile widened, a playful glint in his eye. "Something I think you'll like," he said simply. Then, as though he could sense she might hesitate, he added, "It's just a small thing. You don't have to open it right away." "Thank you," Melanie murmured, still a little unsure but feeling a strange warmth in her chest. "You're welcome," he said, stepping back from the table. "Good luck with your lemonade stand. And yeah, I think your mom is going to love that necklace." Melanie clutched the folded note in her hands, watching as he turned and walked away. his tall figure disappearing down the sidewalk. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at the note like it held some kind of secret magic. Finally, curiosity got the better of her. She unfolded the paper with careful fingers, her heart racing. As she opened it, something slipped out and fluttered onto the table. Her breath hitched when she saw the unmistakable green of a $100 bill. It looked crisp and new, its edges sharp and not creased. Her eyes widened as she picked it up, her hands trembling. Then she turned her attention back to the note, the words neatly written in slanted handwriting. Dear Melanie, the world needs more people like you, kind, hardworking, and full of heart. Keep dreaming big and spreading positivity wherever you go. Your mom is lucky to have you, and I know she'll treasure that necklace. Consider this a little boost to help you reach your goal. Never forget how special you are. Your friend, Barron. Melanie read the note again, her throat tightening as tears welled up in her eyes. Her fingers gripped the paper tightly as a wave of emotion washed over her. She glanced up toward where Barron had walked off, but he was long gone. Still, the kindness he left behind lingered like a soft glow, filling her with a gratitude so big it felt like her chest might burst. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just the $100 bill or the note. It was the way he'd listened, the way he'd made her feel like her little stand and her big dreams mattered. And somehow she knew she'd never forget him. Melanie, the voice startled her, and she looked up to see her mom standing on the porch, holding a watering can. Her mom had been busy in the garden, taking care of the plants, but now she was standing still, looking at her daughter with concern. Noticing the look on Melanie's face, her mom set the watering can down gently, the soft clinking of the metal breaking the otherwise peaceful silence of the afternoon. She quickly walked over to her daughter, crouching down beside her to be eye level. "What's wrong, sweetie?" she asked in a soft, motherly tone, her face full of care. Melanie wiped the back of her hand across her eyes, trying to compose herself. Despite her best efforts, her voice still trembled as she spoke. "Nothing's wrong, Mom. It's just someone bought lemonade and gave me this." She held up the note and the crisp $100 bill, her hands trembling slightly as she spoke. Her mom, concerned yet intrigued, gently took the note from her hand. She scanned the words quickly, her eyes moving slowly across the paper. As she read, her face softened, and her lips parted slightly in surprise. The words seemed to settle in her chest for a moment before she finished reading, her gaze slowly lifting to Melanie's face, her own eyes glistening with a mix of awe and emotion. "What does this mean?" her mom asked, her voice full of curiosity. Melanie took a deep breath and began to explain, her voice still shaking but now laced with wonder. She told her mom about Barron, the tall man who had bought lemonade and talked to her so kindly. She shared the part about how she wanted to buy her mom the necklace she'd seen in the mall for her birthday, and how Barron's generous gesture would make that dream come true. "Oh, honey," her mom said softly, pulling her into a warm, tight hug. "That's the kindest thing I've ever seen." The two of them stayed in the embrace for a while, the moment filled with warmth and quiet joy. Melanie clutched the note tightly in her hands as they hugged, her voice a whisper as she said, "Now I can get you the necklace, Mom. The one with the heart, the green one you liked." Her mom pulled back slightly, a smile stretching across her face, her eyes filled with both pride and emotion. "You didn't have to do that, sweetheart. Just knowing that you wanted to is more than enough for me." "But now I can," Melanie said, her voice firm with determination, her heart pounding with excitement. "And I want to. I really want to." Her mom reached up and brushed a stray lock of hair behind Melanie's ear, her gaze softening with a proud, affectionate expression. "You're amazing. You know that," she said, her voice thick with pride. Melanie blushed and looked away shyly, glancing down at the note in her hand. "I think he's the amazing one. I don't even know who he is. He just came by and..." Her mom glanced down at the signature again, furrowing her brow slightly, trying to place the name. "Barron," she murmured, her voice thoughtful, almost trying to recognize the name. After a beat, she shook her head with a soft laugh. "Whoever he is, he saw what I see in you. A kind, thoughtful girl with a big heart." The rest of the afternoon passed in a daze for Melanie. The world felt lighter somehow. She sold a few more cups of lemonade, her spirits soaring with the unexpected surprise, the note tucked safely away in her pocket. With every new customer, she couldn't help but beam a little wider, offering them a heartfelt thank you and an extra big smile. It was like she was walking on air, the kindness of that stranger filling her heart. That evening, after she had cleaned up the lemonade stand and counted her earnings, along with the surprising $100 bill, Melanie and her mom sat at the kitchen table together. The room was quiet except for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. "Can we go to the mall tomorrow?" Melanie asked, her eyes shining with excitement, bouncing slightly in her chair as she spoke. Her mom chuckled softly, clearly amused by her daughter's enthusiasm. "I think we can make that happen," she said with a smile, reaching across the table to give her hand a gentle squeeze. Melanie carefully placed the note on the table, smoothing it out as she traced the words with her fingers once again. Her heart fluttered in her chest, and she felt a strange sense of wonder. "Do you think I'll ever see him again?" she asked, her voice quiet but filled with curiosity and a hint of sadness. Her mom tilted her head thoughtfully, her eyes distant for a moment, as if pondering the question. "Maybe," she said, her voice soft. "But even if you don't, he gave you something far more valuable than money." Melanie looked up, her brow furrowed with confusion. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice quiet but inquisitive. Her mom reached across the table, gently tapping the note with her finger. "He reminded you of how special you are," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "He made you believe it too." Melanie smiled, her eyes softening, as she hugged the note close to her chest, as if it held more than just words, but a part of her own heart. "I think I'll keep this forever," she said, her voice filled with a newfound sense of confidence. The next day they went to the mall together, and Melanie carefully picked out the necklace she had dreamed of buying for her mom. The green heart pendant shimmered under the store lights, and it felt like the perfect fit for her mom. She couldn't wait to give it to her on her birthday, knowing it would make her mom feel loved and appreciated. When the day came, her mom opened the small box with wide eyes, her hand flying to her mouth in surprise. "Melanie, it's beautiful," she said, her voice thick with emotion, though she already knew what was inside. Melanie grinned, feeling her heart swell with pride. "You're beautiful, and you deserve it," she said, her voice full of sincerity. Her mom hugged her tightly, whispering, "Thank you. I'll treasure it forever." A couple of weeks later, Melanie and her mom were relaxing in the living room, winding down after a busy day. Her mom was flipping through TV channels when something familiar caught Melanie's eye. She glanced up, and her breath caught in her throat. "Mom, that's him!" she exclaimed, pointing at the TV with excitement. Her mom turned, puzzled at first. "Him? Who?" "The guy from the lemonade stand," Melanie said, her voice practically bubbling with excitement. "The one who gave me the note and the money for the necklace." Her mom squinted at the screen, her brow furrowing slightly as she watched the man standing tall and poised beside a well-dressed older man. "Wait, that's Barron Trump," she said slowly, her voice full of surprise. Melanie nodded, still staring at the screen in awe. "I didn't know who he was. I just thought he was tall and really nice." Her mom smiled, pulling Melanie closer, her arms wrapping around her in a comforting embrace. "Well, now you know, and it seems like you met someone truly special that day." Melanie leaned into her mom, a small smile spreading across her face. For the first time, she understood that sometimes the world gives you unexpected gifts in the form of kindness, and sometimes it's the little things that matter most. So what do you think about Melanie's chance encounter with Barron? Do you believe kindness can come from the most unexpected places? And do you think we all have the potential to make someone's day just a little bit brighter? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories. Thanks for watching.